Welcome back. I'm Ms. Killen here at MPB, and I'm so glad you came back to learn with us. We're going to dive into some more Algebra 1. Today we're looking at Lesson 9, which is Transformation of Functions. We're looking at BF3. I can transform a parent function by applying a horizontal and vertical transformation. Now, some more vocab that we need to look at. What horizontal means, what vertical means. When I look at horizontal, I'm looking from side to side. When I'm looking at vertical, I'm looking at up and down. Then we also need to understand what independent and dependent variables mean. When I'm talking about an independent variable, it's something that does not count on anything. When you are independent, you do it all by yourself. It doesn't matter what somebody else does. So independent is what it's going to be today, what it's going to be in a minute, what it's going to be forever. Dependent is it depends on something. Depending on the weather is depending on if we're going to have practice. It depends on if we have the money, if we go to someplace else. So a dependent variable is going to have to depend on something. Now when we're looking at these transformations, we're looking at my independent as my x value. And when we look at my dependent, we look at my y value. We need to make sure that we put those on our notes page. All right, so let's look at the next. So let's look at these two graphs. It says the graph below shows f of x. This is our parent function. Now, when we talk about a parent function, it's the original, where it begins. You have to have parents of a bunny to have a bunny. So you have to have two parent bunnies to have a bunny, which you learn in biology. So I start with my parent function, and then I go through some type of transformation to get to my new function. So when I look at this parent function, I can see I have a minimum. I can see where it crosses my x-axis. And then when I look at my transformation function, I can see some information about that as well, where it changes. It says use f of x. How is the following graph changed? So how did I go from my parent function to my new function? Let's look. So my parent function tells me that my minimum was down here at -1, -1. My new function, I've got -1, but now I have -1, +1. So if I look at this, I can say that I went up 2 units. I went to 0, and then I went to a +1. So I can say that I went vertically, which is up and down, 2 units. So let's go ahead and write that on our notes page. Vertical up 2 units. Good job. Let's look at our next one. So I'm back to my parent function, and then I transform or have a transformation to my function on the right. Look at the information I'm given with my parent function about my minimum, and then look at the information I'm giving with my new function about my minimum. What do I notice? I notice that I started at -1, -1, and I ended at -1, -2. So what did I do? I went down 1 unit. So I could say that I went vertical down, or down vertically 1 unit. So let's write that. So I went down vertically 1 unit. Good job. We're really focusing on this information. Y'all really catching on. Okay, let's do this one. I have my parent function, and then I have my new function. Pause the video and look at your table partner and see if you can find out what we've done to go from our parent function to our new function. You're exactly right. I stayed where I was, but now I have gone to the left 2 units. So if up and down was vertically, and if I go left or right, that means I'm going to have a horizontal shift of 2 units. Make sure that you write that in your notes page. I have a horizontal shift. Where the other 2, I had a vertical rise or drop, up or down. Now I'm looking at horizontal, which is my left and right. Real good job. All right, let's look at our next one. You're right. I start here at -1, -1, and I go to a +4, -1. So I didn't do anything vertically, but I have done some maneuvering horizontally. How much did I move? I went a horizontal shift 5 units. Good job. 5 units to the right. Good job. I heard somebody say that. So I went a horizontal shift 5 units to the right. Well, let's go back and look at that other one. I did a horizontal shift of 2 units to the left. We always want to make sure what our horizontal is. Did I go to the left? Did I go to the right? Then we want to make sure that we are explaining our vertical. Did I go up? Did I go down? That was a good catch. Good catch. All right, so let's look at this one. Let's look at each one of the transformations we wrote down and see how we can write them in an equation. All right. So if I go up, obviously I'm adding. If I go down, obviously I'm subtracting. But when I go left and right, there's a new way to see this. We've got to make sure. So if I went up, I added 2. If I went down, I subtracted 1. But now going left and right, it's going to be opposite of what you think. If I go to the left, I'm going to add 2. And if I go to the right, I'm going to subtract 5. You're thinking, Miss Killen, I'm not understanding this. Well, how about I give you a note? On your notes page, go ahead and pause the video and make sure that you write these in your notes page. When looking at the transformation, use this as a guide. I'm going to assume that K, or how I'm moving, is greater than 0. I have my vertical shifts. If I am going up, I am adding outside of the parentheses. If I'm going down, I am subtracting outside of the parentheses. Well, you're probably sitting there asking, well, Miss Killen, what's inside the parentheses? Your X is inside your parentheses. So if you are shifting up or down, you are adding to the equation. Now, when I am on the outside of my parentheses, you move vertically, you move your dependent variable. You're moving your Y's. You're moving the Y values or your dependent variables. When I have that horizontal shift, which is left and right, I am moving on the independent variable. On the inside of the parentheses, you move horizontal, you move your independent variables. So let's look at this. If I'm going left, I'm adding inside that parenthesis. If I'm going right, I'm subtracting inside that parenthesis. This guide is what's going to help us with all the transformations we do, not just with our quadratic function, with also our absolute functions, also with our exponential functions. We always start with that parent function or a starting point, and then we'll do some type of transformation. Let's look at our next one. It says, let's look back at the previous graph. Determine if we are transforming the I for independent or the D for independent variables, and by how much. Write down your answers and then we'll compare. So what did you do? So on our notes page, this was our parent function, and we went here. We said that we had a vertical shift up. So did I move my independent or my dependent? I moved my dependent because I went up with my y's. My x's stayed the same, but my y's are the ones who changed. Good job. All right. What about this one? This one was our next one. My x's stayed the same, but what did we say that we did? We had a vertical shift down. And when we move up and down, which variable are we moving? We are moving our dependent variable. We're moving our dependent variable up and down, those vertical shifts. All right, what about this one? All right, so we started with this parent function, and we said that we went to the left 2 units. So when I did that horizontal shift to the left, we moved our independent variable. That x value, that independent variable was moved. Good job. And last one that we did? You're exactly right. We moved it to the right, which we left our y value as it was for -1, but we moved that x value, so we moved our independent variable, that x value. Okay, so now that we've looked at what my independent variables look like being moved and my dependent variables look like being moved, let's see how we can put it with this graph. It says, let's remember what the parts of a function mean. If we consider the following table, what is represented by each row, and is this a function? All right, so we've learned that f of x also equals y. So is this a table of a function, or is it just a relation? Exactly right, it's a function. I have 1x to 1y. Now, what we just learned with our dependent and independent variables, what would this x column be, and what would this y column be? Exactly right. This would be my independent variable, the one that depends on nothing. And then my y would be my dependent variable, what depends on something. That's what these different variables would be. Good job. Okay, so let's look at some practice here. It says the graph to the right is in red, shows f of x. Let g of x equals f of x minus 4 plus 6 represented in blue. What type of transformations are happening? So we're starting with this parent function and we're going to this blue function. So what did we say, if we look back in our notes page, what did we say happens when I add and subtract inside that parentheses? You're right, I'm moving my independent variable. Now when I add or subtract on the outside of my parentheses, what did we say happens? You're right, I'm going up and down. So let's look at the graph and see what we're doing. So it says that I am adding on the outside. So I'm adding on the outside, meaning I'm going up 6 units. And it also says that I am subtracting inside to the x value. So when I subtract, I'm going to the right 4 units. Now, I just can't put up 6 units and left 4 units. I need to say exactly what's happening. So I need to tell that I have a vertical shift of 6 units up, and then I have a horizontal shift of 4 units to the right. Good job. Remember what happens when I add or subtract inside the parentheses, and remember what happens when I add or subtract outside the parentheses. We always need to make sure that we're looking at those. All right, let's look at our next one. Now here is time for you to master. I am considering this blue graph. This is f of x. What I want us to do, or I want you to do, and then we're going to do it together, is to graph h of x and m of x in the following as these transformations. So in red, and you may need to get your markers or colored pencils, you want to go subtraction of 4 on the outside of the parentheses. And then in green, you're going to want to have a transformation of adding 2 inside the parentheses. Graph the h of x and the m of x on this graph. So go ahead and pause your video and do these. All right, so let's see. I am subtracting 4 on the outside. When I subtract on the outside, that means I am going down. I'm going down 4 units, a vertical shift down of 4 units. So if I'm at 5, I'm going to need to go down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, which is going to be at 0, 1. This next one, I'm at 3, 3, so I'm going to go down 4 units, which would be 2, 1, 0, negative 1. So I have 3, negative 1. The next one, I'm going to go down 4 units. So I have 3, 2, 1, 0. So I'm at 6, 0. And then I have 8, negative 3, and I'm going to go down 4 units. So it'd be negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, negative 7. So I'm going to have 8, comma, negative 7. And then I'm going to graph. Then I'm going to graph my points. So there is my transformation of vertically going down 4 units. See if mine and yours look alike. Now let's do m of x. M of x is telling me I'm going to have a transformation where I'm going to the left 2 units. That means I'm moving my x variable. So I'm going to start here at 0, 5, and I'm going to go 2 units to the left. So I'm going to have negative 2, 5. My next one, I'm going 2 units to the left, so it'd be 2, 1. I would have 1, comma 3, that's 2 units to the left. My next one, I'm going to go 2 units to the left, so that would be 5, 4. So I would have 4, 4. And then my last one, I'm going 2 units to the left, so that would be 7, 6. So I'm going to have 6, comma, negative 3. Let's go ahead and graph that. We all know Ms. Killen cannot draw a straight line, but that's okay. So here are my 2 different types of transformations depending on if I'm moving my independent variable or my dependent variable. Good job. Let's not forget what a vertical shift looks like. My vertical shifts are going up and down depending on how many units. My horizontal shifts, they're going left and right depending on how I'm adding or subtracting. My independent variables are my x values, and my dependent variables are my y values. When I'm adding and subtracting when I'm adding or subtracting inside of my parentheses, I'm going left to right. When I'm adding and subtracting on the outside of my parentheses, I'm going up and down. So we've got to make sure that we remember those different directions. I'm so glad you came here to learn with us here at MPB. I'm Ms. Killen, and thank you so much.